Hi folks, this is your MWIS Planning Outlook with our latest long-range guidance. A look at the short-term details first of all though, and for Wednesday we've got high pressure on the chart just centred to the east of us. That's drawing in a waft of warmer continental air on a south-southeasterly. That wind will be rather gusty in places, particularly around western mountains. A front toward the north and northwest of Scotland will be pushing away northwards. Some patchy rain early in the day toward the far north. Some variable cloud across the hills for a while in the Highlands, but that will tend to thin and lift and break with sunshine coming through from the south. And for England and Wales, generally a warm, dry and sunny picture. There is quite a bit of activity away toward the southwest of the map though, and all of that will destabilise the atmosphere for us increasingly through Thursday and onwards into the weekend as well. Already some of that rain will be affecting Ireland and pushing into southwestern Britain on Wednesday evening, and a few bursts of rain locally running north across Wales overnight into Thursday. A southeasterly wind will be very strong and gusty taking us into Thursday daytime, stronger than Wednesday and reaching gale force in places. Some very turbulent conditions across the mountains, some very warm and humid air but windy with it across most places. Now we could already start to see some thundery rain pushing northwards across Wales from the word go on Thursday. That setting in for a few hours, some embedded thunderstorms and frequent lightning potentially in that mix. It's making gradual progress northwards, some bursts of rain and potentially something a bit thundery in the mix toward the west coast of Scotland through the middle of the daytime. But the main plume of activity looks to be slowly making progress northwards, so you'll get away with a good part of the day across the majority of the Highlands, albeit rather windy. Increasing risk of some heavy rain and thundery bursts mixed in across northern England through the afternoon hours, and toward the later afternoon and evening that pushing into central and southern Scotland for the potential risk of some thunderstorms developing onwards through the evening hours into the Highlands as well. That system clearing for a time at least across England and Wales onwards later in the day. The wind starting to drop too as that feature moves northwards. It leaves us with a rather complicated forecast into Friday. The dregs of that previous system could still brew up some further thundery bursts, even locally in the morning, but the greater risk of further heavy showers and thunderstorms would be more through Friday afternoon and evening. Soonest over England and Wales, the greater risk extending into Scotland with time as well. Still a rather strong and gusty wind from the south is expected. Temperatures stay on the warm and humid side though. Do just keep a close eye on the forecast for Friday. There is that risk of further storms and an increasing risk later in the day of some heavy rain extensively and embedded thunderstorms coming up across England and Wales and extending through into Scotland into the early hours of Saturday. So Saturday could well start off on a very wet note with some torrential rain and thunderstorms from dawn across a good part of the Highlands. Again, keep an eye on those details. It leads to a rather mixed weekend, temperatures tending to come down somewhat as the airflow comes around from the Atlantic. Still relatively humid though, and there'll be the risk of some further showers, possibly thundery, in the weekend forecast. A rather messy weather situation becomes maybe somewhat more structured as a southwesterly with time over the weekend then. So we lose the warmth and humidity, we replace it with a cooler but fairly showery mix coming in off the Atlantic, and I think that's where we could just go for a few days early next week. High pressure trying to build from the south, so England and Wales has a greater chance of getting into some better weather sooner next week. Scotland still feeling some fronts coming off the Atlantic, some rain at times in western mountains. Day-to-day detail open to some question at a week away, but still that risk of some rain and some brisk winds on a west-southwesterly for a couple more days further forwards there. Signals though for high pressure building, and that's been something that's been in the models for a while through the middle part of June, and that signal looks pretty strong now for high pressure expanding over us during next week. So all of us most likely getting into some settled conditions, some sunshine and lighter winds and pleasant temperatures. Doesn't look to be anything too excessive from that, but warming up day on day most likely. Looking at the weekly pressure patterns, this is the 7-day period 16th to 23rd of June, and it shows the orange colours, the high, expanding in over us to settle things down during that week. Uncertainty later in the period as to the exact position of the high may just be starting to weaken even through the weekend into the start of that next week, and indications would favour more of a mixed west by southwesterly flow back in charge by the final week of June. High pressure toward the south, lower pressure towards the north, and maybe mixed, fair to middling sort of story where things just come through at times from the Atlantic to give some rain and some showers, most likely in west and northwest Scotland, better further southwards based on that sort of pattern. Into the start of July, though, the blue colours emerge on the map, which would suggest lower than average pressure and a generally more unsettled trend dominating, with more frequent rain or showers, cooler temperatures and stronger winds in the mix, so not looking so promising as we start July. We'll, of course, keep an eye on how those details develop. Keep up to date with all your latest local details every day on our website. That is your Planning Outlook. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.